G'day there guys, it's your Aussie Hubby Markee, back at it again with another r/EntitledParents video. Now today we're going to go through all the videos that I posted this week and just listen through all of them. Now if you love me as much as I love you, you'd mosey on over to that old like button and tackle it like Steve Irwin would a crocodile. Speaking of crocodiles, if you find the crocodile emoji, make sure to put it down in the comments after you read these. Anyway guys, without further ado, sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie and get ready for this week's best content. Now our first story comes from user Fabulous Lil Queen, titled, Entitled Aunt Freaks Out When I Get a Purple Cast for My Broken Arm. I'm back y'all, sorry if there's any errors. I'm typing this story with some hella long fake nails on, so, you know, bear with me. Anyways, I have a bit of free time, so I figured I'd tell you lovely people another story about my entitled aunt. Spoiler, she's a tramp in this one too. Now, onto the story. I broke my arm when I was around 10. Myself and a group of friends had been playing at the swing park, and I fell off the climbing frame. The first thing I felt was an immense pain in my arm. It was so bad that I actually felt sick from the pain. My friends, understandably, freaked out and ran off in search of an adult, whilst a couple of them stayed with me in case my arm fell off, whilst they were gone. This is a terrifying situation when you're 10. Eventually, my friends came back with one of their dads. He quickly checked my arm over and was around 80% sure that it was broken. He offered to drive me home and would tell me jokes in an attempt to cheer me up. He succeeded in making my friends cringe at the dad jokes, and I felt myself relax a little. I was still in immense pain, but I wasn't worried about my arm falling off anymore. Eventually, we got to my house and my friend's dad explained to my mum what happened. He's such a great guy. He even offered to take my mum and I to the hospital. My mum politely declined because the guy had to go to his work and she didn't want him getting into trouble. Once he'd left, my mum asked me all the usual worried parent questions. What happened? Where does it hurt? Do you feel sick? Etc. She then called my nice aunt to see if she could drop us off at the hospital. She was working though, and even though she told my mum she was leaving work ASAP, she would still take about an hour and a half to get to our house, because of how far away our work was. That left only one option. Entitled aunt. Brilliant. Surprisingly, she did actually seem somewhat worried when my mum told her what happened, and she got to our house within 15 minutes. Entitled cousin was staying with her dad overnight, so she didn't come with us. Hell, she even brought me sweets to cheer me up. It honestly felt like I was in an episode of The Twilight Zone. Everything is going about as well as it could with my arm in a massive amount of pain. We get to the hospital, give the hospital all the required information, and head to my waiting room for what expected to be a very long wait. The hospital is hella busy. My mum takes me towards the children's waiting area so I could play with the toys whilst I waited, entitled aunt following behind. I settled for playing with one of the plastic trucks so that I didn't have to move my broken arm. Everything was fine until a little girl, around 6 or 7ish, asked me if I wanted to play kitchens with her, which I immediately said yes to. She set out some plastic cups for a tea party and we played quite happily, until entitled aunt decides to intervene like the interfering biatch that she is. She's like, "What are you doing, sweetheart?" Me, playing kitchens with Sarah? I don't know, I just figured she needed a name. Entitled aunt, "I thought you were playing with the trucks. Why don't you go get one of them? They're so cool." But me and Sarah are playing. "OP, little boys don't play kitchens. That's for little girls." But uncle, my mum's brother, is a cook and he's a boy. But he's a homophobic slur. You don't want to be one of those, do you? Entitled auntie, he's playing with that little girl. Leave him alone. You really don't think it's weird? Mum, getting pretty impatient. No, I don't. Now either leave the little ones alone, or you can head home. Entitled aunt rolls her eyes at the pet name. My mum, even now, likes using pet names for me. She has a lot of anxiety around making sure that I know she loves me and cares about me, but she went back to my mum and sat down. Sarah and I talked and played for a bit. She asked me about my arm, and I told her what happened. I found out through our talks that she had gotten her ears pierced, but the company hadn't cleaned the equipment properly, which had led her to her right ear being infected, despite her mother cleaning it thoroughly every day. She went on to tell me that she was going to get the earring taken out, and once she felt better, her mum would take her to get her earring re-pierced at a different establishment. Despite the hassle she was going through at that point in time, Sarah was pretty proud of her ear piercings, which in turn made me think about getting my own ears pierced. I had run over to my mum to ask about maybe getting my own ears pierced with the money that I had saved up. I got pocket money for helping around the house, and always liked to save it for things that I really wanted, or for my mum's birthday and Christmas presents. Entitled Aunt scoffed and made faces of disgust. As my mum would say, she looked like a dog chewing a wasp, but she didn't vocalize any of her concerns. After about an hour, I was called up to get x-rayed. I said my goodbyes to Sarah and headed to the x-ray room with my mum. I'm gonna skip all the boring stuff. Basically, I got my arm x-rayed. It was definitely broken, and we were taken to a little room. There were about 4 beds in the room, each with a curtain for privacy, where we were to wait for one of the nurses to arrive and sort out a cast for my arm. Entitled Auntie had been allowed to join us at this point, as the hospital only allowed one adult to accompany the child to the x-ray room. Never really understood why. She was still pretty pee about my mum getting impatient with her earlier, so obviously, she dropped the nice demeanor and pet names and went back to being her typical bitchy self. And not bitchy in a good way. She kept her mouth shut for the most part until the nurse decided to ask the question. The question that would make Entitled Auntie lose her crap. "What color of cast would you like, sweetie?" "He likes the blue. It's the same color as his top." "Is the blue one okay for you?" She asks me this with a look that tells me, you don't have to go with the color that this psycho wants. "I like the purple one." Entitled Aunt just glares at me. "Okay honey, a purple cast it is." "What? Oh, you're actually gonna give him a purple cast?" "Well, that's what he wants." "Entitled Auntie, give it a rest, it's a dang color." "So? It's purple. Little boys wear blue, not purple." "It's not you that has to wear it. Stop being a damn drama queen." "Ah, you're loving this, aren't you? You want him to be gay. You're encouraging this kind of behavior." Mum, looking like she wants to throw hands, "I want my child to be happy. If a purple cast is going to make him happy, then he's getting a purple cast." "Little boys shouldn't be wearing purple. He's getting the blue one. It's almost the same as purple anyway." "But if blue's the same as purple, can't I just have purple?" "Are you a girl?" No, but I like purple." "OP isn't your kid, and I'm not having you make him feel like crap for liking a certain color." At this point, the nurse is trying to defuse the situation, and I can only look on in shock. They argued for a couple of minutes more until the nurse managed to get a hold of the doctor and another nurse, who quickly asked Entitled Auntie to leave the premises. She did, but not without getting the last word in by shouting, "You're a terrible mother, wanting your son to be a homophobic slur." My mum proceeded to apologize to the doctor and nurses for stooping to Entitled Auntie's level. They told her it wasn't an issue and that Entitled Auntie was out of order with her language. Entitled Aunt had naturally drove off and left us at the hospital for another half hour until Nice Aunt came to pick us up. She had stopped off at KFC, my favorite fast food place as a kid, to get us something to eat, and had gotten me a teddy bear at the toy shop in town. It was bright purple. Nice Aunt was quick to post a picture of the 3 of us and the new teddy bear on Facebook, knowing full well that Entitled Aunt would see it, just to pee her off a little bit more. Entitled Aunt actually blocked both my mum and Nice Aunt on Facebook after this incident, and we had no contact with her for about 2.5 years. She eventually got in contact with my mum and sent her a massive apology through text, and told her how she just wanted to be a family again. "Biatch, you cut contact with us. All we did was enjoy the peace and quiet." Anyways, turns out she was moving house, and since she has barely any friends or family that actually likes her, she was using us to help her move. Because, paying someone else to help is too expensive when I have a family to help me. Also, if anyone is wondering about why my mum let her back in her life, Entitled Auntie was a pretty religious person, and my mum just believed that was why she was so against the idea of me being gay. Of course, neither of us believe that all religious people are like that, and we have many Christian, Muslim, pagan, etc. friends, and they are all wonderful people. Needless to say, no one else had an issue with my caste. Some of the kids at school playfully teased me about it, but it wasn't malicious, and they were more just excited to sign my caste. Breaking your arm in school apparently makes you pretty popular when you're 10. Anyways, that was a little story about my psycho aunt. Sorry if it's all over the place or not very well written. I'm hyped up on coffee and attempting to type on my laptop with fake nails, XD. I hope y'all are having a fabulous day, my little cherubs. Edit. Wow, okay, so I wrote this in my spare time before going to work. Went to work, then home to sleep, and I woke up to this. Thanks for all the comments. I'm also a drag queen, but these have nothing to do with the colors I liked as a kid. Though Entitled Auntie seems to think it's my mum's fault that I'm attracted to men. Also, there are a couple of comments asking for a TLDR. I had thought I'd added one, but I guess not, so I'll add it too. Purple, the color of royalty that multiple kings and queens have worn, and she thinks it's girly? Purple has never been used as a gendered color before. Not once. It's a regal color, a color of affluence and power, symbolically speaking. Honestly, I feel like if I went with anything other than blue or green, she'd still have a tantrum. She's just that kind of person. Can I just say how awesome your mum is for being so forward-thinking? A lot of mums would freak out if their sons asked about ear piercings and liked girly things. I bought my 2-year-old daughter a toy toolbox and a toy dump truck. I also buy her dolls and stuff too, but she's exposed to both kinds of toys. Who am I to tell her what she has to like? Well, my mum always had that attitude. If I'm happy and not hurting anyone, then who cares what toys I liked, or what my favorite color is? You sound like a great mum. Your daughter is lucky to have you. You said she's religious, so if she's Catholic, Lutheran, or Anglican/Episcopalian, remind her that priests wear purple and pink in Lent and Advent. Also remind her that purple used to be the color of kings. She was raised a Protestant, but she only goes to the Bible to find excuses to be a bigot, instead of loving everyone as the Bible teaches. But that's a great point. Wish I'd known that stuff at the time, haha. And our next story is by user AngelFire224, titled, Inject My Son with Orange Juice. It's a hospital entitled mum story. TLDR at the end. I'm currently working as a professional mental health nurse. This incident took place back when I was a student nurse and was posted in the pediatric ward. We had a boy in the general ward who had been admitted with a case of viral fever, I think. By the time I started my posting, he had been there for about 3 to 4 days. As soon as he entered the ward, the entitled mother hounded me. She says, "Excuse me, I've been saying the same thing over and over again, but you people just don't listen, do you?" Well, hello ma'am. I'm sorry, what seems to be the problem here? This is my first day here, and I don't really know. Well, then why are you here if you don't know anything? Go back and send someone who's not as stupid as you. Though I highly doubt anyone in this hospital really has a brain. I apologize again, ma'am, but if you could just tell me what's wrong, then I might be able to sort it out. Well, I've been telling your people for the past few days that my son doesn't like apple juice. He likes orange juice, and you should give him that. But nobody's listening to me. He's still getting apple juice, and even that is really bad quality. Okay, it seems that the good folks down in the kitchen have it wrong. Don't worry ma'am, I'll consult with a nutritionist and we'll have this sorted out in no time. Entitled mother just scoffed and marched away. I talked with the nutritionist and asked why the kid was being forced to take apple juice when he didn't like it. But she told me the kid wasn't getting apple juice. In fact, he wasn't getting juice at all. He was getting milk with almost every meal. Now I am confused. I talked to the entitled mother, and she shouted at me how stupid I was like the rest of the staff. Just then, breakfast arrived. Sure enough, the kid had milk and not juice. Ma'am, the nutritionist suggested milk for your kid, and that's what he's getting. He's not getting apple juice. No, you idiot! He gets that with his lunch and not breakfast. Deciding to see what the issue was once and for all, I promised her I'll come back at lunchtime to settle the issue. Lunch arrived, and the kid got, you guessed it, milk. I again pointed this out to the entitled mother, and she said the kid gets the apple juice after the lunch. Okay, what? I was really puzzled then. Just then, a nurse arrived to administer the afternoon medications. See, now he'll be getting that nasty apple juice. Just then, the nurse hung a bag of saline by the kid's bedside and injected a vial of MVI, multivitamin infusion, in it, and connected it with the kid's IV line. The MVI injections we had in our hospital were yellow-coloured and smelled like someone just farted 3 days worth of tacos. And that's when I had the epiphany of what had been the entitled mother's issue. And being the considerate creature she was, she confirmed my suspicion with a horrible screech. See, I told you! Apple juice! Nasty smelling apple juice! Me, ... Well, say something! Ma'am, that's not apple juice. It's an injection. Don't you dare lie to me. Everybody else has been saying the same thing, but I know the truth. You people have orange juice. I've seen it. Give my son that. Put orange juice in that bag. All subsequent attempts to explain to her failed. She screamed loudly and disturbed other patients as well. The attending physician heard all the commotion and came to see what the matter was. He also tried to explain that her son was in fact being given an injection, but she refused to believe that we weren't injecting her son with apple juice, and that juice couldn't be given intravenously. Doctor's like, fine, if this is apple juice, then I suppose you wouldn't mind a taste. And with that, the awesome doc disconnected the IV line, poured some of that nasty apple juice in a plastic cup, and shoved it under entitled mother's nose, who promptly gagged. Oh please, have some apple juice, and we'll give your son a different one. You'll like it, I promise. Naturally, entitled mother refused. She never asked for orange juice again, but I heard from other patients that the entitled mother had been blabbering about suing us for injecting her son with some bad quality apple juice, and then making a fool of her. And that's the true reason, folks, why Thanos wanted to eradicate us. Maybe we had one too many encounters with unhinged entitled parents. I've dealt with some stupid people while working at a hospital, and I just handle phones, and that is amazing how stupid she is. As stupid as she seemed, believe me, I've met worse. I want one day to see a story where someone says, "Shut up and let us do our work." I really wish we were allowed to say that, or at least flip the bird towards entitled parents. Why are you not allowed to say it? They're interfering with your work, so why not? Hospital policy: always be polite to other patients and family. They're already suffering, blah blah blah. Although, most people are indeed capable of recognizing when we're trying to help them, and we too deserve basic human rights and dignity. But I guess you can't expect too much from entitled parents. And that's the true reason, folks, why Thanos wanted to eradicate us. Maybe he had one too many encounters with unhinged entitled parents. Now that you put that out there, someone who had too much time on their hands will edit a video of Thanos with all the Infinity Stones, snapping his fingers, and all the Karens on Earth will disappear into dust. I can already imagine a mega Karen standing in the middle and shouting, "Karens, assemble, all you boss babes!" God, can you imagine? That'd be epic. Can someone please do that? I want to see it. And our next story was posted by user Paulus, titled, "Fun with an Entitled Parent on 9/11. Bit of background. I worked in a call center dealing with an early incarnation of online grocery shopping in 2000/2001. It's a well-known supermarket in the UK with orange branding, which is slightly more aspirational, but still fairly big, meaning that many of the customers were entitled AF. I worked an evening shift as I was at college in the day, and on September 11th, 2001, I had been at home working on coursework, and along with many millions of others, had seen the horror of what happened that day unfold live on TV. I headed into work at around 5 PM that day. Management had scribbled on the whiteboard, "Site slow today." This was due to the whole world trying to get online to find out what had transpired that day. Anyone who remembers this day will remember how scary and momentous it felt. One of my calls that day was one of the most entitled people that I had ever spoken with. They're like, "Hello? I can't do my online shopping today as your site keeps crashing." "Oh, I'm very sorry. I have been informed that the volume of global traffic today on the web is causing our site to be less responsive due to the terrorist incident." "I don't care. I want my shopping." Did she actually just say that? "I'm very sorry, madam. There is very little we can do. I've just been told even the BBC website is struggling with the amount of traffic. Did you see what happened today? It's really not my problem. I don't care what's going on. I need my groceries and you need to get them to me. Otherwise, my baby won't get any milk." At this point, I checked the customer's address to see if she lived in a rural or remote community. She lived in central London. Not really sure how I will be able to rationalize with this horrible entitled mum. So I say, "I'm very sorry, but many of our customers are having issues with our site today. We are expecting that internet speeds will return to normal later on tomorrow." She yells, "I want my baby milk. I don't care." "Please do not shout at me. I will terminate the call if you do. If you don't get me my baby's milk, I will have to go to the store." I asked to put the entitled mum on hold, and asked one of our team leaders how I could seek resolution with this nut job, and they told me, "Well, we don't control the speed of people's internet. She will have to try again tomorrow." Shortly before I cut the entitled mother off, I was actually considering whether I needed to pass her details to social services, as she was actually telling me her baby won't get any milk. Absolutely outrageous. You and solely you are responsible for feeding your crotch goblin. I doubly lost hope for the human race that day. I had a store in a suburb of New York City in 2001. We all had friends and family who worked in the city, and some of us had friends who were volunteer firemen in our town that had jumped in their fire trucks and driven to Ground Zero to help. As everything was unfolding, we were listening to the radio as the reporter's voice broke while telling us the first building was going down. We were all frozen in place, just in horror. And this one bear was standing at the register getting all pissy because no one ran over to ring her up. That's just not normal behavior. These people need to be removed from society. Antisocial personality types. Yeah, I'll say. Some people. Was she blind and deaf? Surely the whole world was talking about it. Hell, they were. And was she just so dead to the world that she didn't know? Good job on dealing with that. Many people would have lost their temper. I don't see how anyone would have known what had happened. I was already feeling pretty shaken by that day, as was everyone around me. She's up there with the worst people I've dealt with. You have a pretty low opinion of the great British public doing a job like that. If you lived in Ireland during the 1970s to 90s, you'd have an even lower opinion of the British. Ah ha ha! The Troubles! What a shin slapper that is. My mum is a Dubliner, and she says very similar to you. This reminds me of another idiot who called corporate to complain that an ISP office was not answering their phones. Turns out the ISP office this idiot was complaining about was in the World Trade Center that had collapsed. Idiot kept screaming about how he's still entitled to his internet that has stopped working. Sounds like he's been doing too much chop in the bathroom that day. And our last post. Corona shutdown, parent meltdown. Where I live, we had an immediate school shutdown, which was supposed to be for 2 weeks. 600,000 students have to stay now, and we get this gem. External email warning. This email originated from outside of black. Open school district. Use caution responding or opening attachments and links. So if we have to work, what are we supposed to do with our kids? Leave them home alone? Black and I both work and are integral to the operation of our companies, which are in turn integral to our livelihood. Neither of us can willy-nilly take time off for a stupid virus blown out of proportion. This is beyond ridiculous. What are we supposed to do? Neither her or her husband are integral to operation. And I'm sure she thought sending an email to the specific school titled, "What the heck?" was going to do anything rather than the school district, city, county, etc. regarding emergency childcare. Don't know what that sentence was going for, but okay. I don't think anyone responded. but I really hope someone got a bit snarky and did. And then 2 days later, the governor announced the shutdown is going to be almost 2 months. We haven't gotten an update email from her yet. I feel a little bad for her kid. Edit to add, for those commenting on it, no, she is not in need / a recipient of any helping hand programs. For families that are in those programs and receive bags of groceries for the weekends and vacations, they will continue receiving them, as well as lunch and breakfast being available for kids like they would during normal school. But since it has to be to-go bags, the entire menu is almost all cold lunch like sandwiches. Look, I don't know if this is all local school districts, but I'm glad to say ours has a fairly nice outreach when someone needs help. Is this a school district in Canada? Since yesterday, the Education Minister announced that the elementary and high schools will be closed for 2 weeks after March break for coronavirus precautions. A few hours south of the border in WA. I don't recall exact dates, but our don't go out precaution is until the last week of April. Let me guess, Everett or Bothell School District? No, but I just found out Bothell was closed way before we were, ? I mean, I understand if they can't take off because of money, which is a lot of people's concerns here. Yes and no, money isn't a concern for them, but getting immediate time off probably is, just like any other job. With over 500,000 kids home from school, I'm sure they can hire a neighborhood kid to babysit no problem. Wow, well screw them then. Everything shutting down is a serious financial concern for a lot of people right now. Oh my god, tell me about it. My full time is a crap show between being unable to keep things stocked because distribution is out, and people calling out from a mix of fear and those who are actually sick. I hope that the fact, before saying school was closed for 2 months, they banned meetings of more than 250 people, that they're thinking of some sort of subsidy. Otherwise, no one in the working class, not even including those working in restaurants that were closed, are going to be able to pay their bills. Hit in the face for having the audacity to ask a parent to control their child. I was talking to an old friend I haven't heard from in ages, and they brought up this story, so I thought I'd share it. I used to work at Dillard's in the child department, so I saw my fair share of entitled behavior from our customers, but this happened to my coworker. A customer was browsing around with her 4 to 5-year-old son. He was running around, knocking things off racks, etc. The mother made no effort to control him until he crashed into her a couple of times. She told him to go sit in one of the chairs by the dressing rooms. The chairs were pretty nice and upholstered in a silk-like fabric. My coworker was removing garments left in the changing rooms, and as she passed by the little boy, she noticed he was pushing a small car. Think Matchbox-style car, all over the back of the chair, and it was shredding the fabric. She spoke to the boy and asked him not to do that. He responded by blowing a raspberry at her and pushed the car with even more force. She went to the mother and said, "Your son is destroying the chair with his little car. Could you speak to him?" Which is way nicer than I would have put it. The mother stopped and stared at my coworker. They stood there just looking at each other, for my coworker described as too long and very awkward. Finally, the mother asked, "So?" My coworker started saying, "Well, could you?" And before she could finish the sentence, the mother slapped her across the face with the hangers she was holding. So hard, it broke a hanger. Now, I would have beat the crap out of that woman right then and there. Job be damned. My coworker just turned around and went to find our manager. She first encountered an off-duty police officer who worked security in the store, and is a close friend of mine, and told him what happened. He went with her to the manager. The manager went over to the mother, listened to her rant, apologized to her for the misunderstanding, and gave her 10% discount for her quote-unquote troubles. My coworker was so stunned she couldn't even speak. Even the cop was saying, "WTF just happened?" The cop turned to my coworker and asked if she wanted to press charges. Before she could answer, the manager interrupted, saying that wouldn't be necessary. Meantime, all the other employees in the department are watching all this go down, and I had just walked back in from my break. I see my coworker has a huge welt across her face and is bleeding under her eye. My coworker told the cop she did in fact want to press charges. The manager told her she couldn't do that if she wanted to keep her job. She told him that was fine. She quit. The manager was still insistent that the mother not be troubled by all of this. The cop said, "She could put her eye out, and I am arresting her. If you don't like it, you can't take it up with my commander." You can take it up, goddamn. The entitled mother was still acting smug until she saw the cuffs. Then she started screaming the usual nonsense. "I'm gonna sue all of you. I'll have your badge. Do you know who I am?" Etc. No one but the manager cared, and she still went to jail. All the other employees and customers who were watching clapped as she was being led out of the store in cuffs. The manager started in on the employees about how to correctly deal with situations like what had happened. We all look at each other, and without saying a word, we all clocked out and left. All of us. Good luck running the entire department by yourself. We hung around our injured coworker until she was done with the police report, and then took her to lunch. She said she'd been planning to apply at a different store in the same mall anyway, but hadn't planned on quitting the way it happened, and worried that Dillard's would give her a bad reference now. We convinced her to go to the other right then, injured face and all. She explained what happened to the manager there. She was hired on the spot and told her they don't put up with crap like that. If a customer hits you, no matter who they think they are, charges will be filed and will be permanently banned from the store. I spoke to my cop friend a few days later, and he said the crazy woman nearly drove him insane with her screaming and threats on the way to jail, which wasn't close, by the way. After she saw that wasn't working, she started with pleading and bribery. He said he didn't think he'd ever been so glad to hand someone off to booking. All this happened ages ago, and since that day, I've never stepped foot in a Dillard's. Screw them. Punch the manager in the face and say, "How do you handle it properly?" That would have been awesome. Also, what did they do with the kid? Someone came and picked them up, I'm assuming a grandfather. And Reason Reader says, "If I saw that as a bystander, I'd place that tramp under citizen's arrest and immobilize her forcibly if needed. That manager is a complete piece of crap too. You should have all gone over his head to his supervisor and said that either he goes or all of you do." Hear, hear. And our next post is by user RavenWolfPS2, titled, "Entitled parent won't send her disabled child to his day program on activity days because the providers get paid for having fun apparently. I work as a caregiver at a day program for developmentally disabled adults. Our center is open from 9 to 5, and we have our fair share of entitled parents, some of them being regulars. One of these regulars is particularly difficult to deal with. She will often park her car in the company van spots when dropping off her son, which in itself is entirely preventable because her son is supposed to be picked up en route in the morning, and most of the time they have to leave him because he's not ready on time. Mind you, her child is blind and wheelchair bound, so he can't get ready himself. She gets mad when a female staff member drives the van that picks him up or drops him off, because she doesn't think female workers are strong enough to lift him, although they've never had a problem getting him in or out. My supervisor is usually the one that has to deal with all the parents, so I'm actually borrowing this story for them. I don't remember the exact words of their conversation, so I will have to paraphrase how exactly this all went down. EM will stand for the entitled mother, and S will stand for my amazing supervisor, who had the unfortunate experience. We will call the son Tommy. S, phone rings, sees that it's from entitled mother, so picks it up and says, "Hi entitled mother, this is S. How can I help you?" "I have the calendar you sent with Tommy." "Oh good. Yes, it says here you're planning on taking Tommy to the theatre. The theatre is a paid outing, so we will need the money from you, as well as a permission slip. Did you get the other pages with the packet we sent out? There should be a paper with the costs of everything you can opt in for, and a permission slip." "Yes, I got all that. I have it here in my hand. I want to know how you are planning on paying for all of this." "Well, we get the money from the parents, and they each pay for their children individually. The cost of the outing is the cost of Tommy's ticket only. You won't be paying for any of the other members to go." "I'm not paying for his provider to go." Supervisor is taken back for a second and says, "You won't be paying for the provider, ma'am, just for Tommy, and that's all. The providers are paying for themselves, right?" "No, the company pays for the providers to go." "Why can't the company pay for my child to go then? Why do I have to pay for him?" "Because that's how this business works. We can't afford to send all of the members for free." I should add here that Tommy works one-on-one with staff members because of his needs, but other members have different ratios. We have situations where one staff is working with up to 4 members at a time. An entitled mother goes, "Then the providers should be paying for themselves. They should not be getting paid to watch a movie." Most of our providers can't pay for themselves. If we required that from them, most wouldn't be able to afford it, and we wouldn't be able to go to the theater at all. The providers aren't there to watch the movie. They are there to take care of the members, restroom them, make sure they're safe, and help them have a good time. Well, I'm not going to allow that to happen. "Ma'am, the other parents are happy to give their child the chance to go out into the community and participate in the fun group activities. You can choose to pay for Tommy to see the movie, or he can stay back at the center while everyone else goes if you don't want to pay. I'm not going to pay for your staff to go watch movies. Tommy will be staying home on days when everyone else goes to the theater," and hangs up. We also have a potluck at our workplace every other month, and entitled mother won't let Tommy come out on that day either. The staff members each bring in some food for the potluck, and everyone at the center gets to have some. The members are not required to bring anything. Entitled mother won't let Tommy go because she sees it as anyone who isn't pitching in is getting free food, and she can't let that happen. Edit. I feel like I should add that since Tommy is a one-to-one, if he doesn't come to the center and my supervisor can't find a way to shuffle people around in order to give them work, she has to call off one of the providers, and they miss work that day. Entitled mother knows full well that this is the case. That's just sad. The worst part is we know Tommy loves being at the center more than anything. He started coming here less and less because of his mum's inhibitions about certain things and her inability to get him ready on time. My supervisor has to set the schedules, assuming he won't be there, so that if and when they call out, it won't cause any issues. So that has to be negatively affecting his education. Can't you ask his social worker to speak with the parents? What about the father? Is he in the boy's life? Unfortunately, since we're not classified as a Life Academy, Learning Center for Disabled Persons, we don't get as much control over these situations as we'd like to have. We can't consider habilitation goals a necessary form of education. It's pretty much out of our hands at this point. Terrible. I work in special needs public school. Our aides make so little. I couldn't imagine them not being able to come in just because their one-to-one is out. Some of the things I've heard from parents is really unbelievable, but I usually hear things that are linked to the inability to accept their child's full diagnosis. Why can't I just make their kid talk? Oh, how I wish it were that easy. Do you work with children? I feel like the functionability denial from parents is a lot more common in the elementary age children. By the time our clients get to our center, they're already functional adults, and their parents have mostly accepted their functionability. This, of course, causes its own problems when parents don't accept that their children are more capable than they're previously presumed. Edit. Also, we're caregivers, not therapists or pathologists. We work on goals with our members, but don't give them the same level of education or exercise as their therapists do. And she's clearly just wants someone to pay for him. She's willing to sacrifice everyone's happiness to save $10. More like $5. We go on a discount day and get discounted rates due to group prices. If she doesn't want to pay for the movie, that's perfectly fine, but she should at least let him go to the center on that day if anything. The state pays for all of that anyway. Yep, I agree with you. Never underestimate people and their spitefulness. And our next post by Shy Girl Turned Sassy. Neighbors try to label me a prostitute because I was sexually active. I lived in Melbourne, Australia for about a year, 2013 to 2014. There I met a gorgeous same-sex couple, Brian and Derek, name changed obviously. They were both bisexual. They lived in the same building as me, on the floor directly above mine. I soon entered into a sexual relationship with both of them. We would have threesomes and sometimes gangbangs. Besides the awesome sex, I also became really good friends with them, and we're still in touch. It was tons of fun for all involved. Among my neighbors were a middle-aged couple with 2 children. They lived right across the hallway from me and were quick to judge us after seeing Brian and Derek exiting my apartment early in the morning on more than one occasion. The woman, Karen, asked me in the elevator what I was doing with those 2 gays, quote unquote. I politely told her it was none of her business. When she kept on pestering me, I told her, if you must know, I'm friends with benefits with them. Now leave me alone. I still remember the look of shock on her face. I don't think she expected me to reply so brazenly. When I told Brian and Derek about this, they shared their own experiences in dealing with them. This couple was rather homophobic too, and had tried to talk to the property manager about the slurs moving into a building with families and children. They were told to screw off, or freak off, just not in so many words. But anytime either or both of these guys were in the elevator with them or ran into them in the parking lot, the husband, let's call him Todd, would stand between them and his kids while giving Brian and or Derek angry looks. Must have been trying to prevent their kids from catching the gay. Lol. In the weeks that followed, the entitled couple continued to give me the stink eye anytime they saw me. I just smiled back at them sweetly, which ticked them off even more. On one occasion, their teenage daughter said good morning to me and tried to make small talk, before her mother dragged her away by the arm, while berating her for talking to that woman. Interestingly, their kids seemed very well behaved and nice, and I truly felt sorry for them. My next door neighbors, another couple with kids with whom I got along with very well, later told me that entitled mother had tried to get them to file a noise complaint against me. According to entitled mother's logic, since I shared a wall with that family, they could probably hear all the ungodly noises coming from my apartment, and they should complain in order to protect their children. The nice couple told them they would do no such thing, as I had never bothered them, and they had never ever heard any such noises come out of my apartment. One night, Brian, Derek, and I decided to have a foursome that would involve us and Brian and Derek's friend Dean. The next morning, Dean asked if he could come back to my place with me, as it was a Sunday morning and Dean was hotter than hell, so I agreed. As he and I were walking down the hallway to my place, Karen was just getting out of hers. She saw Dean and I smiling and talking, and his arm around my waist, and approached me, asking angrily if I was being a tramp and selling my body. I told her she was insane and asked her to kindly frick off. Later that day, I received a call from the property manager. She wanted to let me know that Karen and Todd had complained that I was a prostitute and that it was dangerous for their children to be in the same building as me. They told her in great detail about how I was bringing home different men. The property manager had gotten to know Brian and Derek quite well, and had an inkling that I was friends with them. So she contacted them and told her all about the entitled parents' crazy behavior and accusations, and that the man they had seen me with was a mutual friend, that there was no prostitution going on. The property manager dissuaded the entitled parent from filing any sort of false complaint against me, as it would cause a world of trouble for them. I thanked that kind lady and later had a good chuckle over it all with Brian and Derek. The blatant harassment from Karen and Todd had stopped, but of course, the hateful looks continued. On one occasion, when we were in the elevator together, Karen tried to make a pathetic attempt at shaming me by condescendingly asking if I was going to have any men over that night. What she didn't realize is that shame about my promiscuity is something I'm entirely incapable of feeling. I proceeded to tell her in great detail about all the sex acts I was going to engage in that evening. I mean, she's the one who asked, right? After this fun little interaction, she and her husband avoided me completely. Good times. I would have just said, ask your husband. Then the neighbors would have really had to file a noise complaint on account of her banshee-like screams. Lol, what an entitled brat. Also, what trouble could you get into, may I ask? Here in Australia, prostitution is legal, although whether it is street walking or brothel work varies from state to state, just like here in New South Wales. both illegal in Victoria. Probably thought she could get me kicked out for being ungodly. Did you ever know that you're my hero? Thank you, that's sweet. And I Love Desi Girl says, you would have no complaints if I was your neighbor, only applause. I would have been jealous. 3 hot guys? Dang, my kind of party. Oh, this wasn't a party. Our parties had way more people. Winky face. And for the life of me, I don't understand what someone else's decisions have to do with personal salvation. I find things fascinating, and I try not to stare, offend, or ask questions. I'm still learning about gayness, etc. I had no idea 2 gay men in a relationship would have sex with a woman. Things can be fluid, which is good to know. I would love to see the parents' faces when you told them. Probably so against it because it's also extremely intriguing to them. It's causing hot nightmares. Ho ho! They were bisexual, both of them, as I fairly clearly stated in the post. Oh, come on, that's what they're going to react to here, not the rest of it? I wonder if they were having some hot and juicy nightmares, who knows? And our next story by Sabertooth Diego. Got screamed at by a mum after I wouldn't let her kid pet my service dog. Happens today. I'm at the movie theater to see Onward. I have a service dog, a very large German Shepherd. His vest is navy camo and made out of my old uniform. Very clear do not pet patches. Kid, like 12 years old, ran at my dog and tried to pet him. I blocked his hand and said, "Don't pet him." He asked why, and I said, "You should never touch dogs you don't know." I tend to say this rather than "don't touch service dogs," because in general, you should never pet a dog you don't know. And frickin' entitled mummy came screeching out of frickin' nowhere, "Don't tell my child what to do." I told her, "So raise him better," and walked off with my dog while listening to her scream. Fudging hell. So raise him better. This is what normal people to psycho parents with no boundaries. They don't stand there while the psycho screams at them and threatens to call the police. Yeah, I've never understood people who just take crap. And I've got a classmate who is absolutely fascinated with my service dog and always tries to pet him without asking. Another classmate said they'd be happy to take him if I ever couldn't. People be weird, mate. Why can't you pet service dogs? Just curious. They're focusing very hard on doing their jobs, and petting them is distracting them. More importantly, a service animal is an accessibility tool like any other. As an analogy that might make sense, you wouldn't grab someone's glasses from their face and play with them. And our last post is by user Copper Hope, titled, 3 kids for 5 hours for $20. Sure. I got told to move this year from Am I the A-hole? So first things first, I'm a nanny and my rate is $20 an hour. Low for this area because I'm a student. I live in New Zealand where the minimum wage is $17.50. I work for a wonderful family with one 7-year-old child who I love to work with. My aunt knows that I work as a nanny and has her own nanny. She messaged me on Thursday night telling me she's in blind and needs someone to watch her 3 kids, who are 2, 5 and 7 years old, the next morning, and is begging me to do it. So I ask my boss if they're okay if I'm watching her kids as well, and my boss is fine with it. I message my auntie to say that I can, and I'll do it for $60. She needs me to watch them for 5 hours. She throws a fit, but seeing that I'm the only one who can, she relents and says she'll pay. The day comes, and juggling 4 kids was a challenge, but I handled it with mild threats of duct tape. Her husband comes home explaining that he thinks 60 is too much for a 1, and offers me 20. I stand firm that I needed it to be 60 and that I won't back down. He complains for about 20 minutes before giving up and paying me $60. They're now going around the family saying I was a total tramp for not doing it for free, because they're my cousins and I'm already getting paid by my boss. This is driving me crazy, and I've gotten angry phone calls and texts from everyone else that side of the family, except my mum, who thinks she's being a nutjob. The reason she needs me to come in when she had her own nanny was a scheduling conflict, and she got called into work. She had contacted other family members, and they refused to watch her gaggle of brats. Mr. Rifle is my friend. Yikes. Says, "You actually saved him quite a bit of money. So what's his problem? A regular babysitter could have charged them $20 per hour per kid, so it would have cost them $300. Next time, get the money in advance, or you're a no-show. Also, him trying to welch on an agreed-upon deal was a total dick move that could have ended up in court. Hell, in some circles, he could have ended up at the bottom of a river, especially in New Zealand, not gonna lie. Tell your family to knock it off or you'll block them. Well, you just found out that the entire family, minus your mum, are entitled jerkwads. Block them all from contacting you and then rejoice that they will now have to rely on one another. They deserve it. And you provide the service, you set the market rate. It's a total jerk move to try and negotiate a lower price after the work is done. P.S. Waving across the Tasman from a Sydney beach. Aw, that's wholesome. G'day there guys, it's your Aussie Hubby Markee, back at it again with another r/EntitledParents video. Now if you love me as much as I love you, you'd mosey on over to the old like button and tackle it like Steve Owen would a croc. Maybe even chuck an Aussie flag down in the comments too, who knows. Now, with that out of the way, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and get ready for some good content. Entitled family verbally abused my 9-year-old daughter, calling her fat and worthless. I lose it. Okay, so for some background information. I'm a father of a 9-year-old girl who's my whole world. Her mother and I split up 3 months after her birth when I found out she had been cheating. Naturally, I got a DNA test, and thankfully she was mine. Problem is, her mother doesn't care about her health. She feeds her whatever she wants and even gives her coffee and donuts for breakfast sometimes. It's a mess. I've called CPA and the police in the past for wellness checks, but it's gotten me nowhere. So since she was about 4, she's had weight issue. Now on to today's story that happened about an hour ago. Our cast are EK1, entitled Kid 1, about 13 to 14. EK2, entitled Kid 2. Same age, they honestly looked like twins, but definitely brothers. EM entitled Mother, ED entitled Father, and MD my little girl, and me. So my daughter is aware she's overweight. She's teased constantly at school, so I've made it a habit to visit her at least 3 times a week, each week for lunch, as she always asks me to come so she can eat lunch in peace from the bullies. This weekend was her weekend with me, and she has taken a liking to basketball, which I think is great, and she asked me this morning to go to the park down the road in our community to shoot some baskets with her. Of course, I say yes and we go. When we get there, I park and immediately notice 2 kids, EK1 and 2, sitting at one of those park tables, cussing and throwing basketballs back and forth at each other. I pay them no mind, and we walk up to the court that isn't being used. I also notice 2 adults, who end up being our entitled parents, about mid-30s, sitting on a park bench about 30 feet away, smoking and messing around on their phones. We start shooting, and she's having fun when I hear it. EK1's like, "Get the hell off the court, fat ass. We were about to use it, and you're too fat to play anyways. Look, you can't even make a shot." My daughter is 9, and still learning, mind you. EK2's like, "Yeah, maybe go home and use a treadmill." They both start laughing. Now, they said this with me right in front of them, and I'm ticked. I'm a big guy, about 6'1", 190 pounds, and unlike others, I don't like confrontation. But I'm not scared to engage if necessary. I say, "Okay, first off, both of you kids watch your dang mouths and do not insult my daughter again. You really think that's okay? Insulting someone on something so sensitive and think it's a laughing matter? Your parents are doing something wrong." That's when the parents, who were still at their bench, hear me and join in on the fun. For them at least. They say, "Who the hell do you think you are? Why are you yelling at my sweet boys? You better watch what you say, dude." I say to them, "Your precious boys are standing here insulting my daughter and calling her fat. You two really think that's okay? To insult a child younger than them over something she's already bullied about at school? We're here trying to get some exercise in and play some basketball, and just have fun. I don't need to deal with you and your little punk-ass boys insulting her." Entitled Mum looks at me without blinking, like what I just said was a special at a restaurant. She says, "So what's wrong with what they said? Look at her. She's fat, isn't she? They're being honest. She shouldn't be here. What the frick? Are you... God. They say, yeah, doing her a favor. She's just embarrassing herself. I mean, look at her. Then they all start laughing. Literally 2 teens and 2 adults, laughing at my little girl while she's standing behind me and trying so hard not to cry. I lost my crap. I say, alright, listen, you two, pointing at the parents, are fudging trash. So they're being honest and that's okay? Alright, fine. Here's some honesty. Your sons are punk-ass bullies, and I promised you, eventually another kid will stand up for themselves and knock their teeth out. I, as a normal adult, fudging despise bullying. You both are crap parents, thinking what your kids are doing is acceptable. Entitled Dad says, watch what you're saying to my wife and sons. Your daughter is fat. Deal with it. Yeah? And you're a mean man, and you shouldn't say these things to people. She's crying, and I'm ticked, and even more upset at this. I say, watch what I say, or what, bud? What are you gonna do? You and your perfect little family seem to think honesty is alright, no matter what form. So I'm telling you, you're all just bullies. And unlike my daughter, I'm an adult and I won't put up with any more of your bullcrap. Especially if any of you say another word to my daughter, I swear you'll regret it. I was maybe 3 inches from the father's face when I said this. Looking back, maybe I shouldn't have said or you'll regret it, but I was ticked and in protection mode. Entitled Dad just stares at me without moving for about 10 seconds, with me not moving. I say, we're not leaving. My daughter just wanted a fun day at the park, and I won't tolerate another negative word said against her. Test me if you want. Entitled Dad and Entitled Mother look at each other before finally Entitled Mother scoffs. EK1 and 2, let's go, we're going home. They begin walking away down the street towards their house. I'm watching them most of the way because I had a feeling they'd say something else, and I was right, sadly. When they're about 100 or so feet down the road, the dad yells, "Have fun with your fat daughter, punk!" And they hurry their walk. I start running after them. I was done and not putting up with this anymore when I hear my daughter in a calm voice, "Daddy, just let them leave. Now we can play alone." She's smiling now, and I can tell she's right, and she just wants to have this all be over with. "Alright, sweetie, wanna play horse?" "Yeah, you go first. And thanks for sticking up for me, Daddy. I'm sick of bullies." "Always, hun, and I know. Don't worry, let's just have some fun, and I'll always be there to help you when I can." I give her a big hug. We had a good time for the next hour shooting hoops, and then went home. Thanks for reading, guys, and don't put up with bullying. Edit. Thank you guys who gave the awards, and everyone else for their kind words and support. If you are someone who's dealing with bullying, you're not alone, and don't forget that. Be the bigger person, and know that if they are bullying you, you're in control. They're trying to elicit a reaction from you, and it's up to you to give them the satisfaction. I'd help you all if I could. Genuinely. Also, to all of you saying fake, there are always some on all posts. I wish it was, but I wasn't. Dude, I wish my dad was just as awesome. Also, I feel her pain. I was overweight for my age, then some jerk insulted me before summer. I came back from summer after working off 104 pounds and one-hit KO his tramp ass. I didn't get in trouble because he was bullying another kid. It was filed as self-defense, and he never came near me after that. Good job, Cookie Dog 800. Good for you, dude, honestly. The best way to get rid of a bully, or even befriend the bully, is to beat the living hell out of them. That shows you're no longer at target. You're at Big W. And it also shows you're someone they should respect, or at the very least not mess with. You're a good man with a good heart. Keep on showing that little girl how to be brave, and how to take care of yourself. Best of luck with her mother. I appreciate that, bud. Seriously. And yeah, honestly, her mother just makes everything so much harder. I mean, she has 4 children now, all with different fathers, and she doesn't listen to the doctor's advice. She doesn't listen to anybody. She thinks she's right no matter what. But when I have my daughter, men and her will work on things together. As long as you teach her healthy eating habits and encourage her to ask her mum to make good things instead of junk. I've talked to her mum about it many times. It literally just falls on deaf ears, unfortunately. And bruh, you did great against them. I'm proud of you. By the way, do you have any other interactions with dreadful people like those? If so, you've probably learnt a lot of dealing with those people. Good for you. If not, then you've taken a step into a larger world. Honestly, kind of. Back in high school, I was a varsity baseball and football, and I fell in with the popular crowd. But I quickly realized that a lot of my friends, and a lot of the crowd that I was a part of, bully people, and it just enraged me. So every day at lunch, starting sophomore year, I would sit with a different group of outcast kids, and talk and get to know them, and also prevent them from being bullied at lunch, since I was sitting with them. There were actually a couple times when I had to beat up a couple of my friends who I caught bullying other people. There's just something about it, to this day, that just enrages me. Edit, damn voice text lol, had to change a few things. That's probably what's going on, because I notice there's a lot of words going on here with OP, but you know, the message is good. And our next post was posted by user HollowV, titled, Ex-Stepmom Releases My Cat into the Wild. Hooray, my first post into this subreddit. This happened about 7 years ago now, and I'm still mad about it. When I was 11, my dad bought me a cat for my birthday. He was an orange fluff ball named Angelo, and I loved him so much. Everything was my responsibility. Cleaning the litter box, giving him food, brushing, etc. Anything you need to do to take care of a cat. A year later, I got a tiny grey kitten named Dexter. They were my babies. Then the world fell apart. I never believed in the wicked stepmother stereotype until this. My dad and stepmom's fighting got worse and worse to the point where she would hit my dad. Her and her son, who did nothing but complain about things my dad did. So my dad got out of there, and I went to stay with my mum while he looked for a new place to live. Everything was going fine until until things started getting split into the divorce. By terms of the divorce. 1. Her son's car had to be put in her name so my dad wouldn't pay for it. That's another story entirely. 2. All of my dad's and my things had to be returned to our new apartment. 3. I got to keep my cats. Apparently, my stepmom didn't like number 3. She wouldn't return my cats. And if you guys watched Netflix recently, don't f with cats. My dad contacted his lawyer multiple times to try and get Angelo and Dexter, but she kept refusing. Finally, my dad threatened to take her to court so that he could get the cats back. But wait, ooh, what's this? She doesn't have the cats anymore. She actually confessed that she released my cats in the middle of nowhere, and we have a lot of coyotes near where we live, so unless they were picked up by someone, they were almost definitely killed. Stepmom then told my dad he could have the house. She packed her things and left the state. I miss my cats. I haven't been able to get any since Angelo and Dexter, but I really hope to get one in the future. But I have a new stepmom now, and she's the nicest person in the world. So, sort of happy ending. Edit, a lot of people have been saying that we should sue for animal cruelty because of what my stepmom did. But the big reason we didn't do this is because even if we sued, it wouldn't bring my cats back. We tried calling shelters and putting up missing posters, but we never found anything. Even if we sued, it would give money and not my cats. It was really the idea that no amount of money would be able to bring back those 2 cats, and at the time, I wasn't ready to just replace them. I hope this answers people's questions about that. Edit 2, this is also back in 2013. I was just a kid back then, and we don't know where she is now. There's not much we can do now, but we did our best at the time. Lilith Firehawk says, frick your evil stepmom. Put up flyers everywhere. Cat's name, your phone number for the contact, and whatever reward money seems fair to you. We really tried to find them, but they're long gone. This happened back in 2013 too. And a story from Super Derpy Gamer MK1. My mum had a douchebag abusive boyfriend who let my cat, Thunder, outside when we were at my grandparents' house in Toronto. We were moving so we couldn't keep the cats at home like we usually do. Instead of doing the responsible thing of telling us that the cat had accidentally got out, he waited until there was no way we would be able to find him. I miss Thunder, And now every time I go to Toronto, I can't help but think that he will start pawing at the door like he used to. He was a cat we let outside. Freak anyone who gets in the way between a person and their cat. And our next post is titled, Mum blows up at a Disney cast member, gets VIP seats for nothing. So this was posted at Casual IMA, titled, Hello, I worked at a Disney NGM, now Hollywood. I was told to share this here. I was working at the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, or Epic as it was known to the cast members. And we had already closed the theatre for the start of a show. When the theatre gets to maxed capacity, we legally can't put more people in there because of fire code, etc. This woman barrels up to me, gets within 6 inches of my face, and waves her paper fast pass ticket in my face. She demanded to be allowed into the show, and screams that her child, a little boy no more than 6 years old, needs to see this show, or his day is ruined. She was screaming so loud, veins were popping out of the front of her head. I stood there, calm and collected, explaining to her that the theatre is full and we can't let anyone else in. She pushes past me with one arm, holding her child's arm in the other. She marches straight for the ropes that block the entrance and tries to hoist her son over the rope. Before she gets that far, a manager walks up and puts his hands in the air to try to contain the situation. He offers to get the kid an ice cream and provide VIP seats to the next show, if she calms down and comes back later. After screaming about how rude I was to her, which I was not, she accepts the tokens of kindness. My manager turns to me and asks me how long my shift is today. I told him I was off work at 6:30. He nods, and he tells the irate woman that he will have me personally escort her to the VIP section down front. He writes her a ticket voucher for the ice cream and seats, and she fumed off with not even a thank you. My manager turns to me and apologizes on behalf of her. Then he asks me, how many more shows do we have today? I looked at the clock and realized it was after 5 PM, and well into the middle of our last show of the day. I looked at my manager as a sly smile crept across his face. He had just given an entitled parent a VIP pass to a show that won't happen. The respect I already had for him just skyrocketed through the roof. I was long gone by the time she came back, but I would love to imagine the look on her face when she came back at 7 for the last show. Kid got an ice cream and Mum got mad. It was a win-win. Your manager is awesome. I would love to see her face. Arms flailing, spittle forming in the corner of her mouth. Got a feel for the kid who I'm sure bears the brunt of these tantrums. It's gotta be scary to see your mum totally lose control over herself like that. I had a mother who pulled crap like that. It's too much a part of everyday life to be scary. It's more embarrassing and exhausting. You know the day's completely ruined once she loses it like that the first time. The entire rest of the day will be spent listening to frothing about how rude the worker was to her, and probably listening to her complain to anybody who will listen about the awful thing that happened. The only saving grace is she's not actively mad at you, so long as you make enough noise that sounds like agreeing with her. Exhausting. Oh, this sounds fun. I feel like you guys have to put up with a lot of crap from people though. I always am nice to cast members because they're always going above and beyond. And it's just common courtesy. I've worked retail, so I go out of my way to be nice to the employees. Indeed, unless they are being complete tools, and I mean really bad, I will be extremely polite and patient with retail and fast food workers. They have enough crappy people to deal with. I figure the least I can do is to give them one pleasant interaction. And our next story was posted by user Master Havoc, titled, My Entitled Mother Gets Hit with Reality Regarding CVOID-19 and Asians. Hey guys, I have been writing a lot of stories about how my mother has been handling COVID-19 situation. For a mini recap, she has told me not to go to Shenyuan, a Chinese stage play of risk of being infected, threatening to bar me from the house if I go to Chinatown, and questioning me if I'm sitting by Asians on the train. Now this is a success story, as my mother recently watched a news report that detailed the harassment, racism, and bullying the Asians were suffering during this whole situation. My mother was disgusted by what she saw. She nearly cried that Asians in America were buying guns because they feared for their life due to the threats that they were getting. She wanted to throw her phone when she saw a black person try to disinfect a young Asian man minding his business. My mother even felt bad that a lot of Chinese-owned businesses were losing money because of this whole thing. I said after the report was over, "I thought you were giving me the reality. Mum, this is reality. You saw it. That is the reality of many Asian Americans in this country." "I was just trying to keep you safe. I didn't know that it was this bad. I'm sorry." We hugged after that and said sorry to me because I was right. She plans to have dinner with me and brother in Chinatown her next paycheck to help out. I should mention she compared what she saw to me to being black many years ago in America. We are black, by the way. I'm just happy my mother woke up and finally saw the truth for once, and not what she thought was the reality. I feel a lot of the dumb things you're seeing with COVID-19 is people creating their own theories and fears in their head. It's not the media telling them, but something in their mind to assume it. As a guy with an Asian wife, I thank you. She isn't Chinese, but she has been afraid of going outside and people discriminating against her. This is why I have higher hopes for the younger generations over boomers. We went grocery shopping and had trouble finding groceries in a lot of the normal places. Stopped at the Korean/Japanese market we usually do, and it was business as usual. As annoying as it was that they were getting a lack of business due to racism, I will happily take advantage and shop there. Freak everyone else for being ignorant racist jerks. My mum and I went grocery shopping on Thursday since she was leaving for the weekend for alone time, just starting online college. And while waiting in line, there was a woman who was from China that moved here 5 years ago. The lines were long and moved slowly, so we chatted a bit. She was very kind and was super sweet to us and spoke about her high school life. Before she left the store, she smiled to us and thanked us for not being scared of being close to her and for not taking anything from her cart while she ran to get salt, since there was barely anything on the shelves. It really sucks that this whole coronavirus fear has been affecting Asians from any country in a negative way, and that they have been facing so much discrimination. Not to rag on Shen Yun too much, but it's sort of the propaganda wing of a cult, so take the message it presents with a grain of salt. One article about it that says stepping into the uncanny, unsettling world of Shen Yun. On another note, I had to yell at a mum who snatched her kid as I walked past her. I'm Asian, not Chinese, and stuff like this is too common. Even when the infection first came out, my coworkers were like, "Oh, don't get us sick now," like it was supposed to be a joke. And our last post is by user Britty2073, titled Psycho-Religious Karen. This happened about 13 years ago when I was 17. A little backstory. I'm a girl and I went to a private boarding school for kids with learning disabilities in the northeast of the US. One of my disabilities was that I would easily get influenced by other people if I hung out with them a lot and would let them take advantage of me. I think that's just normal sometimes for some people. I also have high-functioning autism. Not sure if all of this is important to the story, but I just wanted to give you an idea. Anyways, there was a girl at my school that wanted me to go down with her to her home for the weekend in Georgia. We'll call her Veronica. Veronica was 18, and I only knew her for who she was from school. Didn't know anything about her background, family, etc. I do want to add that my family isn't very religious, and I never went to a church service in my life, or have ever read the Bible. I'm also attracted to both male and females, and discovered this while being in boarding school. This is important later. I flew down with Veronica to her hometown in Georgia and met her family, including her mum, who we will refer to as Karen. Karen and the family seemed very nice and welcoming. We went out to eat that night and had a great time and everything. Later on that night, right when we were going to bed, Veronica and I were laying down and talking. She was asking me questions like if I ever kissed a girl and stuff like that. I said yes, and she mentioned that she would kiss a girl as well. I said, "Oh, that's cool." She then started holding my hand, and one thing led to another. We eventually experimented. Right after that happened, we laid there and she got really upset. I don't remember her exact words or mine, but it went something along the lines like this. I feel upset. How come? Because I feel guilty for what we did. We were talking some more and she made me feel guilty that we did this. I don't know what to say, so I said I was sorry and tried to give her a hug. She said she needed space and left the room. I didn't know what to do and was assuming maybe she just wanted to think. Boy, was I wrong. I was sitting on the bed on my laptop that I brought, just waiting for her. Veronica finally came in sobbing along with her mum, Karen. The whole conversation went like this. Karen staring at me viciously. Whatever happened tonight between you two, it never happened. She freaking told her mum what we did. I'm scared and confused. I'm like, okay. What you two did tonight was very wrong. Veronica is not like this. She's a Christian. I was confused by that and didn't know what to say, and trying to de-escalate the situation, I said, she's a very good person. Of course she's a very good person, but you are not sleeping with her in here tonight. You can sleep in the other room. We all then go into the other room that I was going to sleep in, and she continues the conversation like this. Now, Veronica, do you want me to send her home tomorrow? Veronica, still sobbing, says, no, it's fine. I just want to let you know Veronica is not like this, okay? And this will not ruin her year at the boarding school name. Homosexuality is very wrong, and it will ruin your life. If you feel like you're attracted to girls, then you need help. If anyone tells you that it's okay to be that way, it's not. It's wrong. She just kept blabbering and yelling at me how bad homosexuality is, and that it ruins people's lives, and that it's not normal. Yeah, but how good's the footy though? She then proceeded to tell me about Sodom and Gomorrah, explaining why homosexuality is wrong. Then Karen says, Veronica will ask God to take that image out of her head. Veronica's sobbing is like, my mum is right. I'm not like that and it was wrong. Right before they left the room, Karen turns around and says, oh, and OP, if you tell anyone at boarding school name what you and her did, I will tell everyone that you are lying, and if anything, I will tell them that you forced her into it. She made me feel like I was such a horrible person that night that I cried myself to sleep. The next couple of days, Karen and Veronica acted very cold and awkward around me, and they both claimed they couldn't sleep that night. When Veronica and I flew up back north, Karen made it so we sat in different seats, as if I had a freaking disease. I called my mum when we got back to the school, and I told her everything that had happened. My mum was ticked, and even wanted to call Karen up and tramp her out. I told her not to do that, so she didn't, but she did call up my school, and let them know what had happened to me when I was down in Georgia. The devil went down to Georgia, didn't she? And how the mum acted toward me. The school did tell my mum that Karen was crazy, and they will talk to me about it, which they did. I told them everything. The school told me not to worry about it, and that I didn't do anything wrong, and that it was very inappropriate for what Karen did. Everyone, including my school, knows that I would never force anyone to do anything. Like I said, I wasn't very religious before and after this whole incident. This woman left a bad taste of Christianity in my mouth. And Veronica left an even worse taste, I imagine. I know not all religious people are like this, but it seems like people like her give religious people and religion in general a bad name. So Emperor Mittens asks, did you ever learn what happened to Veronica? It's just awful for her to have such a horrible woman for a mother who had coerced her to think that way. After we got to school, she did still act awkward around me, but I didn't care. But I has other friends there to support me. We were also in the same dorm, but not roommates. She tried to befriend me after a few months, but I wasn't having any of that. I also forgot to add that after school I was done and I went home. Kind of pro-revenge. I messaged almost everyone who went to the school and told them what happened. She messaged me and asked why I told everyone what we did. I told her it was because that whole situation was messed up, and she deserved it. I was kind of a biatch back then, lol. She then reminded me that if I did that, her mum would turn it back on me. I told her I didn't care, because everyone knew what kind of person I was and would never do something like that. Also, a few years ago, one of Veronica's friends, let's call her Andrea, wanted to hang out with me. I said sure and suggested maybe at her place, but she was nervous about that because I guess Karen told Andrea's mum that I forced Veronica to kiss me. But anyways, last time I knew, I guess Veronica got married. Not sure if she still is though. So what do you guys think of this situation? I think it's like everyone's the asshole in this situation. Like, Veronica's in a real rock and a hard place. I feel like she was just very ignorant at the time and her mum was the safety net and she didn't know that the mum was going to be that crazy about it because she's scared. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like it was the right thing that Britty, the OP, has done here, but what do you do in this situation? Because the mum is just going to destroy Veronica no matter what. I feel like she made it worse by doing that to her and telling everyone, but I mean, the people deserve to know, don't they? Entitled mother calls the cops on me for trespassing on my own land. Gets evicted. I'm on my mobile and I'm dyslexic. It's hard for me to pick out all my mistakes. If you see any, just let me know and I'll fix them. I'll cast me, duh, entitled mother, typical entitled cow, Frank the unlucky neighbor, previously UN before the edit, the owner of entitled mother's house, and the father of entitled mother's baby daddy. Grandfather, an 83-year-old farmer who takes no crap, cops 1, 2, and 3. Backstory. For most of my life, I was raised by my grandfather. Nothing was wrong with my family life or anything, just a few sets of circumstances that's a whole other story in itself. We live in a suburban area surrounded by woods, and he owns about 10 acres into the woods with the boundaries clearly marked by stone walls. One of these stone walls separated my grandfather's land from a cul-de-sac, and up until now, we have had zero problems with any of them. In fact, my grandfather was usually more than happy to give permission to the neighbors who politely asked him to use his land, given they had a good reason. One of these neighbors had asked my grandfather if he could dump the sticks and leaves in his yard over the stone wall. My grandfather agreed, as he rarely uses that part of the property anyway. This will be important later. My grandfather is very healthy for his age, and still strong as an ox. That being said, he has a few minor health issues, including vertigo spells, so I've been trying to help him around the yard more and more, as well as just to stay active outside away from the crowds with this virus going around. Recently, I've started the project of cleaning up the underbrush around the wooded area. A large pine tree had fallen a few months before, and almost hit one of the porches in the cul-de-sac. My grandfather cut up the tree and removed the pieces in the neighbor's yard, but it was too deep in the woods to pull them out with the tractor. This led to me going back to that pine tree and trying to clear a path back to the house from there. I was behind the stone wall, cutting and pulling up saplings, when I heard the glass door of the cul-de-sac open and an angry lady storming out onto the porch in a bathrobe. She was much younger than a typical Karen. I would say mid-20s. "What are you doing here? You can't be here." Why not? "Because you're trespassing, idiot. You think you can just hang out in the woods behind my house with my kids inside? Get the freak out of here before I call the cops." At this point, I'm just looking at her trying to figure out what to say. I mean, I get it. It can be a little weird seeing someone in the woods behind your house if you haven't seen them before. So I say to her, "Ma'am, I'm sorry if I scared you, but my family owns this part of the woods. I'm just cleaning up back here. Remember when me and my grandfather were back here a few months back to take care of that tree that fell down? Yeah, I just need to clear a path so we can get it out of here." At this point, I thought it was purely a misunderstanding. So the entitled mother shouts back, "Don't be ridiculous. Those were laborers my boyfriend's dad hired. You don't own the land. My boyfriend's dad owns all of this," and gestures with her hand. "Now, I'll tell you one more time to get out before I call the cops." Now, I'm thinking I might be dealing with a genuine idiot, as outside of our property bounds, the woods are owned by the town water plant and don't have public access. But I'm also taken aback that she referred to us as laborers. So I say, guess you're gonna have to call the cops then, because I ain't moving. I don't care what you, your boyfriend, or your boyfriend's dad says. I shrug as I lean back against the wall and pull out my phone to call my grandfather to tell him where I was. He tells me he'll be there in a few minutes and to hang tight. She then dramatically proceeds to call 911 and tell them there's a shady individual on her property refusing to leave, and she's afraid for her life. I started getting nervous at this point, even though all I have on me is a hooked branch cutter. So I call up the police non-emergency number, briefly explain the situation as just a land dispute that got out of hand, and that I am unarmed and waiting on my own property, and that I have never left my own property, and he assured me that it would be settled when the officers arrive, but that didn't help my nerves. Just then, I hear my grandfather pull up and see him walking through the yard towards us. Entitled Mother says, "What? Stay back! You can't come in my yard!" He growls and says, "Keep your mouth shut, you dumb broad." He growled as he walked over to me and climbed over the wall so he was on my side. Grandfather says, "Now who the hell do you think you are, and why are you yelling at my granddaughter? My boyfriend's dad owns all of this, and both of you are going to get arrested for trespassing." My grandfather let out a dramatic, indignant laugh and says, "Oh, did he tell you that? Well, you're in for quite the shock, and your boyfriend's dad is in for quite the talk." After them yelling back and forth for a few minutes, 2 cop cars pull up and 3 police officers come walking into the yard. As soon as they do, she starts screaming again about how we have no right to be in the woods behind her house where we can see her kids inside. Cop 1 looks to grandfather and says, "Sir, do you own the property behind this wall?" "Yes, I do." Pulls out his wallet to show his address. Cop 1 eyeing his license says, "Sir, this address is for the down the street." "Correct. But if you look on Google Maps, it shows the property boundaries of that address reach out through the woods and end at this wall." I hand him my phone, which already has Google Maps open, showing our exact location within the boundary of the property. "Yep, she's right. So what were you all doing back here if you don't mind me asking?" We explained the situation of the tree and how we were working to remove the remnants. Meanwhile, the other officer was taking a statement from Entitled Mother. Grandfather says, "I know the owner of this house. He's a good guy. I give him permission to dump his leaves and stuff behind the wall, but I've never seen her before, so I don't know where she got those crazy ideas. But I'm definitely going to have a talk with Frank when he gets home." Cop 1 says, "She already called him up and he's on his way now. Do you mind sticking around until he gets here?" "Sure, we got nothing to do." The cop walked us to our grandfather's truck where we waited about 10 minutes for Frank to pull in. When he did, he immediately walked over to the truck. "Grandfather's first name! OP! What's going on? Someone was hiding out in the woods? Are you okay? Did you see him?" To clarify, we had an issue in the past with people running from the cops and hiding in our woods. It took a second for us to realize he thought that maybe Entitled Mother saw one and we came out to chase him. Not exactly. At this point, 2 cops are around us again, but being 2 old guys who obviously pose zero threat, they are noticeably relaxed and kind of let them talk it out. Frank explains that Entitled Mother is his granddaughter's mother, and his son had made some mistakes and currently both were staying with him while they tried to find a place of their own. He thinks maybe his son told lies to make him look better. Grandfather says, "Well, I hate to say it, but your son made some big mistakes. She's crazy." "Oh, you have no idea." The other cop is still talking to Entitled Mother, who won't stop screaming about not wanting us to be able to see into the living room, especially my grandfather, a creepy old man. My blood is boiling at this point. My grandpa is the type of person who would gladly throw his life away to save a child. Any child. Even a stranger's. Frank heard this too, and ordered Entitled Mother inside at once. He told the cops he needed to have a talk with both her and his son about their living situation, but they might want to remain nearby in case she tries to call again for whatever reason. Me and my grandfather are given the clear to go, but leave our contact information. Found out later that week that Entitled Mother was getting evicted for a number of reasons, with this little incident being the last straw. He's also filing for custody of his granddaughter, because Entitled Mother refuses to get a job, yet still has money for weed, yet keeps asking Frank for money to take care of his granddaughter. I really feel bad for her in this situation, but I have no sympathy for entitled mother whatsoever. That is entitlement at its best. Update: after several comments about how difficult it was to follow, I've changed the format to exclude abbreviations. Now our man BJ Cookie in the comments says, "This is unrelated to the story, but I immediately thought that you're a demigod / half-blood. Sorry, I don't want to sound like I'm digging into your personal business or anything, but you said there were a few sets of circumstances, so that's why you live with your grandfather, and you're also dyslexic. Greek demigod proof right there. The circumstances are that one of your parents is a Greek god, so there are issues with that, and you can't live with them. And your other parent is unable to take care of you or something like that. There's plenty of different reasons. And then you're dyslexic because your brain is wired to read Greek. Boom! Sorry, this is what happens when someone tells me they're dyslexic. I use all my knowledge to try and prove that they're a demigod / half-blood. Thanks, Uncle Rick." So, OP replies, "They just worked a lot when I was a kid, so I spent most of my days at my grandparents' house and just going home to go to bed. They only live 2 houses down the street, and there's a small trail just a few hundred yards long through the woods that connects the 2 backyards. So as soon as I was allowed to walk around out of sight unsupervised, given that I always had to have a walkie-talkie on me, I more or less came and went as I pleased. Then, when I was 11, my grandmother died, so I began spending more and more time there to keep him company, and eventually I just ended up staying there and never left. But I still went to and from my parents' house every day, and I still do. That being said, my dad is definitely not fully human. When I was a kid, he had a large tank with several piranha, and one of them he had trained so he could pet it. Yes, that's right, I said pet it. Given that you had to feed it first, or he would try to bite you. But only my dad was allowed to do it. There was this other time him and my uncles tried to make a mega lawnmower out of a lower car frame, motorcycle body, and some kind of farm tractor lawnmower. Shockingly, they actually got it to run, but ended up scrapping it because it couldn't turn well. I have a million stories about his shenanigans, but those are definitely in the top 5. See, this is why I read the comments. What is going on with these people? I never expected that from the original story. What's wrong with people, man? And our next story was posted by user Black to Sleep Please. So back to sleep, please. I'm a black bisexual female. My mum does not look like me. In October of 2019, I came out to my mum as bi. It went horrible. She started crying, weeping, and basically wouldn't let me get a word in, even though she was asking all these questions. Since then, it's been rough, and that doesn't even count the fact that our relationship had already been spiraling downwards since I was about 12. This was just the last straw for us, and I can tell you that when I move out in June, she won't be hearing from me. Her behavior has just turned into absolute upset since I came out. Because I don't have one specific situation where she's ticked me off, here is a small book of things she's done and said since I came out. 1. She said she would not hug my children if I married a woman. And when I told her that hurt me and she later retracted the statement, she said, "You can't blame me, I was hurt." 2. She looked me in the face and said to me, a black woman, how black men prefer white women over black women. She's white. 3. When I told her how my suicidal tendencies had cropped up again because of her rejecting my sexuality, she said, "I wanted to kill myself too when you told me that." Oh God. 4. When my much older, also white sister announced she wanted dreads and I was concerned, wanting her to do the research and make sure she's not just taking something that doesn't belong to her, my mum said that she shouldn't be hindered from something because of her race, and that saying she needs to be careful equated minorities wishing to having their own traditions and cultures respected with whites-only signs on drinking fountains. What the... 5. She routinely thinks that me and my best friend are secretly a couple, even though she knows I'm trying to work through things with my ex who is male. By the way, she caused the breakup between my ex and I. 6. She told me I shouldn't spend time with my best friend and her friends because they could get me in trouble. Just because I finally found some black people that I'm cool with doesn't mean they're going to get me killed, Mom. 7. Whenever I bring up anything that matters to me regarding sex and racial tensions, her automatic response is to defend white men. I told her how I wanted to make a short film, non-school project, shedding light on the lack of support that black and all students of color receive in the school system, and what that effect has on the students. She responded with, "White kids get ignored too." 8. I told her about DeAndre Arnold, the student who got suspended and may not be able to walk at graduation because he has dreadlocks, and she refused to admit that it was racism. She kept saying, "Maybe he did something. You don't know both sides." Well, maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't do or say anything. 9. She formed a strongly negative opinion on Queen and Slim after she spent 10 minutes reading reactions of white people who think like her. 10. When I told her I had been racially profiled at a mall, she came up with every excuse possible to make the officers seem innocent. She said, "I've been profiled too. I was a hippie. Police hated us." Yes, because being a hippie and being black has the same weight. 11. When a girl I know got tased by a police officer at a July 4th party in a Kroger parking lot, she immediately assumed that she had done something wrong. The girl was being attacked by another girl at the party. She got tased and arrested. The other girl didn't. It took an hour of persuading and talking about the officer's deplorable behavior before she believed me. 12. I have a counselor now, thank God. But my mum is convinced that my therapist is going to make me think I'm lesbian. 13. She does not have a car. I do. 2 things with this. A. She threatened to take my car when I came out to her because it's in her name since I'm a minor and I have a loan on it. B. Uses my car 2 to 3 times a week and expects me to fill the gas tank. C. This happened last weekend where I had 4 days off from school and only used my car to go to work once. She used my car the rest of the weekend. She ran my gas tank empty, and when she used it again, she yelled at me for not filling the tank up again. 14. I am allergic to dairy. Severely allergic. She regularly buys/makes food I can't eat. There was no food in the house. I was hungry. She had gone to church. I asked her to get some food. She came home with 2 bags of cheese from Trader Joe's, where they carry my favorite marinara sauce. No sauce, just cheese. 15. I had to use my tip money, which I was hoping to use for a movie, since I work so much and really never do anything fun, to buy eggs, milk and butter. Dairy milk and butter free. Jesus, dairy free milk and butter. What's wrong with my brain? Because my mum had not bought any for 3 weeks, and I was out of all of it, and we had no eggs. I was going through the store after work and looking at things, meticulously trying to figure out if I could stretch $12 to get everything I needed, as I hadn't been paid yet and only had the tip money to spend. It doesn't sound like much, but that's what broke me, and helped me to make the decision to, for the most part, cut ties with her after I moved out. And 16, last one, I showed her a photo of an afro, a hairstyle I've been trying to reach for some time now. The woman's hair was huge, and every curl was defined, and I excitedly showed it to her. She told me I'd never get a job looking like that. These aren't even everything, but those have been the most impactful to me lately. I could write a whole book on how much damage my mum has done over the course of my late childhood and teen years. And I feel really bad for them right now. That's depressing. Her mum sucks. Anyway, on to our next story. Entitled Mother Steals Paracetamol Out of My Trolley. So in the midst of a global pandemic, I managed to break my foot. So they put me in one of those walker boots so I'm not completely one-legged. Me and my partner decided to get some bits from the shop tonight. We certainly weren't panic buying, but did buy some stuff extra so we could double up when we're cooking to freeze. I was leaning on the trolley a lot for support, and my partner was walking back and forth to certain aisles and leaving me to get some bits without making me walk too far. It's quite obvious I'm wearing the boot, as in the middle of winter I'm wearing a dress, because I have no trousers I can comfortably wear with it on. Obviously with a broken foot, I am in a slight bit of pain, and although I've been looking for painkillers, most seem to be sold out. but I went for a hunt and managed to find 2 packets left in the shop. I didn't notice the entitled mother behind me at first, but I carried on limping away when I heard someone clearing their throat a bit too obnoxiously. I turned around and smiled at her. She very typically Karen, and she had entitled kids with her around 6/7, and one about 10-11, and she was proper giving me the stink eye, ugga unga junga. Excuse me, can I have that paracetamol? Oh, I mean sure, you can have this one. I handed her 1 pack, and... I'm sorry? I can see you have another pocket. Bewildered. Yes? Well, you're not gonna give it to me? At this point I gestured down to my leg. I'm really sorry, I'm in quite a bit of pain with my leg at the moment, and I really need the painkillers. Well, that's not my problem. You should have been more careful. I have 2 kids, so I need to make sure they're okay if they get the virus. I mean, I'm sure 1 pack will do for now if they're okay. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna buy these. She scoffs and says, I can't believe you won't even help out the kids. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna go. I limped along the aisle when the older of the entitled kids ran in front of my trolley, stopping me dead, and the younger one went into my trolley and grabbed my packet of paracetamol. They both ran off back to the mum. I turned around and she just smirked at me and walked off. My partner came back at this point and I told them what had happened. He was just as pissed off as me, but there wasn't much we could do about it at the time. As we went to the checkout, I noticed the entitled mother unpacking her shopping. She didn't notice me, and I saw the paracetamol just on the checkout line, so I reached across and grabbed both, hid behind my partner, and limped off to another line. I was watching her to see her reaction, and as she got to where the paracetamol should be, she looked down, looked on the line, and then looked up utterly confused. That's when she spotted me. I held up the packets and smirked back. We paid and walked out, so didn't see the aftermath, but it did give me a lot of satisfaction seeing the utter grimace across her face. Society 1 Karen 0. Sloopadoop says, thanks for giving me a new word to learn. You did great sharing half of the available medicine, even though she didn't even need it. If everyone was like you, the world would be a better place. Thank you. I think at this time people need to be a bit kinder to one another. It's scary seeing the amount of stuff sold out in shops, and there are people much more vulnerable than me, and having the flu sucks when it's a normal one. I feel a bit guilty stealing both packs, but at the end of the day, maybe it'll teach her not to be so rude and obnoxious to other people. And with that, we're moving on to the next story. Entitled mother leaves child on my doorstep. I work in a preschool, and sometimes babysit kids from work, especially when we are on break. Because of the coronavirus, we are cancelled. Because my sister has a disability and is immunocompromised, my whole family agreed to go into self-isolation. Thankfully, most of us can work from home. We would limit our contact with all others, even other family members, to protect my sister. I was playing outside in the driveway with my brothers when a familiar car pulls up, and one of the little girls, let's call her Susie, from the preschool, gets out of the car. I have babysat her many times before, but never agreed to on this occasion. I assumed the mum was going to ask me to watch her, but when I approach the car, she speeds off, leaving poor Susie there. I had not made any previous arrangements to watch her, and didn't want to let her into my house, knowing her father is a frequent flyer and Susie may be a carrier. I got her some water and let her sit down in the garage to get her out of the wind, as I tried calling her mum and dad. Neither picked up at first, until I finally got a hold of a very angry mum. I explained I couldn't watch Susie, and she would have to come back and pick her up. The mum freaked out, saying she was already at work. This is a total lie. She works at a mall, that I know for a fact is closed because of coronavirus. I tell her that if she doesn't return within half an hour, which is how far the mall is from the house, I would be calling Child Protective Services. She knows we are mandatory reporters because we already had to open a case on her. She explains that she can't, but says that she will send her husband. 15 minutes pass, and then 30. I get Susie some chalk to colour with while maintaining a distance, but trying to keep her happy. An hour later, I know no one is coming to get her. I phone Child Protective Services and the non-emergency police line, and police arrive at my house in a couple of minutes. I explain to them the whole situation, and thankfully a CPS worker is able to get there pretty quickly. The mum phones me later and yells at me for Susie being taken by CPS and them having another investigation, saying I always watch Susie during break. So I explain my immunocompromised sister, and she is very offended that I even suggested Susie might be sick. I didn't even bother to explain how she could be a carrier without showing symptoms. Entitled Mother claims that she won't be returning Susie to our preschool because of my appalling and disrespectful behaviour, but I know that she has been kicked out of all other preschools. I wouldn't mind if Entitled Mother never came back, but I would certainly feel a little bad for little Susie. I'll try to remember to update this post when school is back in session. Stay safe and healthy, y'all. That Entitled Mother is downright rude. To leave her kid in your hands without saying a word and just driving off? That woman! She has also done a lot of other questionable things. Her child has just signed up for the morning preschool, but she always ends up staying extended just because her mum is never on time. And then the mum refuses, literally every time, to pay the fee, even though my boss is very lenient and gives her a flat fee. The usual fee is $1 for every minute late. I don't know, this woman sounds like an exceptional parent. What do you guys think? I think we're on to the next story. Entitled Mother tries to get me banned from a bar because I was smoking in the designated area. Alright, so there's a sports bar in my town that is situated right next to a youth hockey centre. The bar allows families to eat there, but has a strict 9 PM curfew for anyone under 21 for obvious reasons. So one night I'm having a few beers with some friends, and I decide to step out for a cigarette. I know it's a bad habit. Now, the smoking area is situated in the front of the bar, but 20 feet to the left of the door. So I'm out there scrolling through Reddit and smoking when this family comes out. The kids look like they'd just come from a game or practice, and the mother gets wicked ticked at me for smoking so close to her children. Now, I'm like 15 to 20 feet away from the front door, and I had no control over where they decided to park their car. So I'm like, lady, it's a bar. There's gonna be smoking and drinking down at the establishment. What did you expect? She stood there holding her children behind her defensively and goes, I can't believe you would purposely choose to smoke in front of children when you know they come here. To which I reply, yeah, kids do come here, and I wish they wouldn't because they're either running around or destroying the new billiard tables. Her face contorted into anger, and at this time, she's like, my sons weren't doing any of that. Why are you accusing them of misbehaving? I can't remember exactly what she said, sorry. So I clap back, I'm not accusing them of anything. I'm simply stating to you that this really isn't a place for kids. It's a bar that happens to operate as a restaurant during the day. Well, I know the owner, and I'm gonna tell him to ban smoking on this property. Okay, go right ahead. By this point, I'm done with my smoke and throw it into the ashtray. I go back inside to rejoin my friends, thinking that was the end of it. 5 minutes later, this woman is practically dragging the manager of the bar over to me and demanding he ask me to leave. The manager then asks me what the problem is. I reiterate to him that I was in the smoking section outside, minding my own damn business, and this woman decided to pick a fight with me as she was leaving. The manager then asks the woman, "Is this true?" And she goes, "Yes, he was smoking right next to the door and it blew right into my children's faces." And he goes, "First of all, where are your children?" No bullcrap, she left them out in the parking lot. Secondly, if he was in the smoking area, then there's nothing I can do. We allow people to smoke out there as long as they're not blocking the doors. So she's like, this is ridiculous. Families bring their children here after hockey games. What kind of business are you trying to run here? Well, after 9 PM, this is strictly an adult sports bar, and it's well past 9 PM now. Pointing at me, she says, "Well, fine. If this is the kind of people you're going to allow in here around families, I won't be coming back." "I'm sorry to hear that, ma'am. Please have a good night." Manager shrugs at me and walks away. She then storms off, presumably to collect the children she left unattended outside a bar for about 10 to 15 minutes by this point. Nothing too exciting happened after that. God, I can't imagine it would have. Hell of a mum to just abandon her children outside of a bar at night to go off and pretend like her opinion is important. Guarantee you, she didn't know the manager at all. Makes me glad how level-headed my mum is. When I was about 10, Two guys were smoking right under a no smoking sign, and she didn't make a scene. I got a mouth on me, and it's caused no end of trouble in my life. I swear as soon as the manager said he was sorry to hear that, I'd have butted and told her that I wasn't sorry to hear it, and get the hell out, you old broad. Oh well, I guess I dodged another bullet. Honestly, the guy looked exhausted. I'm sure he was just trying to end the conversation and not have to deal with her anymore. God knows what she said to him before they came over. Can't you just hide being trans? Okay, so this happened a year ago now, but I'm only now addressing the fact that this behavior is messed up and that I shouldn't have to tolerate it. Basically, my cousin A has a son, O, and back then, she would regularly stop in at my mum's place after work for a coffee and a chat after picking O up from a childminder. Sometimes, the childminder wouldn't be free, so instead of A missing work, either my mum or me would look after O, who was a bit of a crap, but overall he's not the worst. Anyway, I've been out about being transgender for 3 years, so 2 at the point this happened, and I looked very outwardly transgender at this point. It's hard to hide being trans with shadowing on your face while wearing a blouse. My cousin brought his son over to watch one day, and asked if we could talk for a moment in the kitchen. I said sure because the son was watching cartoons by that point, and I figured that he'd be fine. So once we're in the kitchen, A turns around and says to me, "Look, you know I love you, dead name, but can't you just hide being trans when O is around? I don't know how to explain it to him, and I don't want him getting weird ideas." By this point, O had seen me in makeup, had seen me do my hair, had heard my real name, and was even using it, hence why he's a bit of a crab for making a mess, but I still like him. Anyway, I say sure at the time, but looking back at this situation, just seems extremely screwed. Like, I'm sorry my being transgender is awkward for you. It's awkward for me too, believe it or not. So basically she wants you to hide who you really are? Nah, screw that. I haven't seen her in over a year. Sort of understand what this feels like, as I had trouble as well. By the way, gay not trans, but I can understand how much of a nightmare some people are. Enjoy life, don't let people down. That's a very good testament that I feel like a lot of people need to hear. Don't let life get you down, don't let other people get you down, guys. Stick in there. And now onto our next story. Entitled Aunt and Uncle say, "How dare you make your daughter your successor? Our son deserves that job." So my boyfriend's father recently announced that he plans to retire in a few months and hand over the reins of his company to his right hand, i.e. his daughter, and my boyfriend's sister, Shania, name changed. She has been working with him for over a decade, and has played a pivotal role in growing the company. She's an astute business person, and everyone agrees that she is the ideal candidate for the job. Everyone except boyfriend's paternal uncle. Entitled Uncle, to know more about him and his problematic views on gender roles, go to my post history and sort by top, maybe the next episode. And his wife, Entitled Aunt. When they heard about this, they were horrified. How dare his brother put a woman in charge of his business? How could they overlook their son, boyfriend's cousin, who was obviously more qualified for the job, by virtue of having a penis? They didn't say it in so many words, but this is pretty much the gist of it. The uncle's son was denied a job at the company years ago on account of his erratic behavior and general jerkery. Back then, the uncle insisted that his son should just be handed a cushy job at the company simply because he was family. Now the uncle had the goal to expect his brother to make him in charge of the company when he steps down. His reasoning is that only a man should inherit the family business and that it just wasn't a woman's place. The uncle actually seemed way more upset about his niece getting the job than he was about his son not getting it. He and his wife kept repeating the same nonsense about how it was a huge mistake to put a woman in charge when male members of the family were available. Boyfriend's dad tried to explain to them why Shania was suitable for the job and the EU and EA's son wasn't. However, it's notoriously difficult to reason with bigoted crapheads. They refused to listen and actually suggested that boyfriend's dad take their son under his wing and teach him. Because he's so smart and he can learn really fast. He'll run the company way better than Shania, you'll see. Also, since your son, i.e. my boyfriend, isn't man enough, To be your heir, you should give our son a chance. They kept making ridiculous arguments like, what about when she gets married? She'll change her surname. My boyfriend's dad tried to explain to them that whether she gets married and changes her surname or not is entirely her decision. And if she does, how on earth would it affect her business acumen and leadership skills? When my boyfriend's dad and sister shut them down, they changed tactics. Yesterday evening, boyfriend received a call from his auntie. She went on an insane rant about how my boyfriend's dad didn't know what he was doing. She then tried to provoke my boyfriend. She told him since he was the son, it was his natural right to succeed his father and he shouldn't let his sister rob him of it. My boyfriend told her to never dial his number again and hung up. These jerks knew very well that my boyfriend has never been interested in his dad's business. But I guess since their son wasn't getting to run the company, they decided to try to provoke a feud between my boyfriend and his sister, because they're the kind of sad, bitter little craps who just cannot see other people happy. Why does this sound like an Indian story? Because it is. I'd say I'm surprised, but I'm not. A third of my class are Indian international students, and most of them would sooner eat a bullet than try working over there as women. What makes you say so? Where are you from? Canada? Is this true, guys? Does this happen over there? Tell me in the comments, I'd love to know. And our next post was by user EraserDust, titled, "Was just at the hospital to get my baby exposure prophylaxis for measles, thanks to an entitled dad going to a baby's birthday while sick." That's a mouthful. I'm still in rage as I type this. On Saturday, I took my 11-month-old to another baby's first birthday party. Today I had a call from that kid's mum to inform me that her friend, adult male, who went to the party was diagnosed with measles. My baby was supposed to get her MMR next month, so she's still vulnerable. By the time I found out, I had less than 2 hours to get my baby exposure prophylaxis, so if she does get measles, it may lessen the damage. Had to deal with a stupid game of telephone to ask her friend's details, like what time he was at the party, when symptoms appeared, etc., while calling up my doctor to figure out what to do, because I don't have a car, so I'm not sure if I should take a cab or public transport. When I got the timeline, I found out that he had a sore throat on the morning of the party. During normal times, going to a baby's birthday party while sick is a dick move. Right now? Going out with a corona symptom in Singapore, a country that has a COVID-19 outbreak, is a major jerk move. He doesn't even have a kid, so I have no idea why a birthday party is a big enough deal to go while sick. Luckily, based on the timing, yay for ride-sharing apps that helps you figure out exactly when you've left, it looks like we were on the same room for a few minutes and most likely didn't interact, since I don't remember him at all. Given my daughter's age though, the doctor still insisted she gets to the hospital ASAP to get the exposure prophylaxis to be safe. I was already in the isolation ward at the hospital, moments before the doctor would be returning to jab my baby, when I get a message from my friend telling me it's German measles, rubella. Yes, I know rubella is serious too, but not as serious as measles, so I would not have wasted previous resources going to the emergency room while there's a pandemic going on. I'm still shaking from adrenaline and rage right now. Such a clusterfuck of entitlement and stupidity. Rubella is just as bad if there was anyone pregnant at the party. Exactly. I'm not pregnant though, so I felt really bad going to the emergency room for this. The doctor had to liaise with people from Infectious Disease Center, CDC equivalent, and it's just so bad to tie up medical resources for sheer stupidity during this time. You couldn't have known, so please don't blame yourself. You heard it was measles and you did what was appropriate in that case. They could have told you earlier that it was the other measles. And our next post is by Commit Kurt Cobain. Commit Kurt Cobain. Single mum at Costco. So as you all know, people are freaking out about the coronavirus. So they're doing everything they can to get their hands on supplies to last the quarantine. My family decided that we were going to try to go to Costco today to get preparations for a couple of weeks of dinners and some other home essentials, like most others are doing. As we're walking around and picking up the supplies we need, I started to notice that the store was basically in chaos. People were hoarding items such as toilet paper, although Costco has limited amounts of the rolls a single person can buy at a time. There were a few people bickering back and forth about items, etc. It was kind of funny to see people acting so immature in a time to panic. My family and I took our groceries to the checkout line, as you do, and stood behind some women and her 2 children. My dad and I started chuckling together about how much of a madhouse the grocery store was when the woman standing in front of us whipped around and started shouting at us to keep our germs to ourselves. She had a stick up her butt about us being too close to her and her 2 children, and how we were spreading our germs. It was a bit strange, but understandable, I suppose. When the woman in front of us finally got to the checkout counter, she started unpacking a good 10 to 15 packets of toilet paper, as well as her other food groceries to be scanned. As I mentioned earlier, Costco had put a limit on 1 pack of toilet paper per person, which meant that this woman would have to put all but 1 pack back where she found them. The cashier mentions this fact to the woman, and she replies by saying, "Well, I'm a single mum and I need these toilet paper rolls for my family, so we don't have to come back out and get sick once the virus spreads more." To which the cashier replied, "I'm sorry ma'am, but being a single mum doesn't have any impact on the limit, so I'm going to have to ask you to please put the excess toilet paper packs back." This woman was not having it. She had the audacity to start yelling at the cashier about how he should be respecting her because she works her butt off to maintain the peace of the family because her cheating, lying husband took all the money when they divorced. God, this is surreal. I'm sorry, I don't mean to make a joke of cheating, it's disgusting, but it's just surreal what people come up with. While this is all going on, the line was getting very long, and people were getting impatient. So the cashier tells her to either pay and take her groceries, not including the toilet paper, or to get out of line. The woman reluctantly agrees and proceeds to hand the cashier her card. Before the cashier can complete the transaction, the woman asks the cashier if she can have a discount because she's a single mum and can't afford everything she puts in her cards. Now, I had been standing in line for a good 20 minutes now, and this really got on my nerves. I don't understand why people are so uncooperative, especially about things like this. Edit to those in the comments, no, she did not get a discount. It's like that meme with that woman, she's like, single mums should go to the front of the line if I'm at the coffee shop because I don't have time for this. Zombie should have coughed. I should have. Then you should have said, sorry, my seasonal allergies have been a lot worse since my recent trip to Italy. That's terrible, I don't condone this. From a person who used to be a single mother, I apologize. WTF, does she really think it'll get her a discount? Some people are really strange. I get parenting as a single mother can be difficult, but she didn't really need to advertise. I think it's time for this single mother to commit Kurt Cobain, guys. I'm kidding, I don't condone that either. Come on, don't come at me, YouTube, please. And our next post by Princess Cheetos 77. Entitled Mother says it's okay if I buy her kid a snack. I don't know either of them, but okay? Lol. My husband likes to tease me that I'm a magnet for drama, especially with entitled people. If I go out to do errands, it's almost guaranteed that I'll have a run-in with someone. I guess I just have that kind of face that lets people think, yeah, let's mess with her. Anyway, on to the first of many experiences I've had. Several years ago, when my oldest child was 14, he played basketball for our local recreational center league. His team made it to the semi-finals of the championship, so we had to spend most of our morning on the Saturday the games were being held. Now the rec center isn't very large, but they decided to hold all of the playoff games there. The gym had 2 full-sized courts, which meant only 2 games could be played at a time. There was about 15 minutes before my son's game, so I took my younger son to the vending machines to get a snack. Now, because all of the games were in this one spot, the time before and after each game was absolute chaos, with people trying to come and go. We managed to slip through the crush and duck in the small alcove that housed the vending machines. When we arrived, there was a little girl, EK, already there, maybe 7 or 8 years old. She was standing in front of the candy machine, just eyeing everything. Younger son and I stepped over the soda machine to get him a drink, then moved over to the candy machine. Without a word, entitled kid stepped to the side to let us look. Younger son pointed out a Snickers bar that he wanted, so I inserted the money, pushed the right buttons, and watched the candy bar fall. Before younger son could bend down to grab it, entitled kid had already snatched it from the machine. I say, "Excuse me, that's not yours, sweetie." I hold out my hand for her to give it back. Entitled kid, clutching the candy to her chest, says, "It's okay, my mum said you could buy me a treat." I'm confused. I'm like, "What? Who's your mum?" Entitled kid turned to point towards the crowd of people, but I couldn't see who she was supposed to be pointing to. I grabbed the candy bar back while she's not paying attention and hand it to my son, who was looking a bit confused at this point. Entitled kid began to cry, which was a homing beacon for her entitled mother. Entitled mother suddenly appeared beside her daughter. She's wearing a ton of makeup, her blonde hair is teased and frozen in place with extra strength hairspray, she's orange from a bottle or two of self-tanner, and her clothes are 2 sizes too small. She's like, "What's wrong, honey?" "She took my candy bar." Entitled mother turned to face me, her face already twisted in anger, but I cut her off. "Is she your daughter?" Entitled mother is a bit surprised that I cut her off, and she's like, "Yes?" "Why did you tell her that it was okay for me to buy her something? I don't know you or her. Why would I do that?" Well, nothing. You're her mum. You buy her something, if she's hungry." I've learned that if you don't let entitled people build up steam, they give up pretty quick. I grabbed younger son and led him back to our seats in the gym. I'm not sure if entitled mother yelled after us because the noise level was high, but I didn't care. Turns out entitled mother's son was on the opposing team, so she sat on the other side of the gym, glaring at me through the entire game, not cheering for her son. My son's team beat hers, by the way. Good on ya. Not only was that entitled, it was dangerous too. How are you supposed to know what her little darling is allergic to? A Snickers bar might have killed her for all you knew. You know, that never crossed my mind at the time. My only thought was that I didn't know them, so how was it my responsibility to get the kid a snack? But you're right, very dangerous with all of the allergies nowadays. And our next post was by user Bieber420, titled, "Caught entitled mother stealing from the back of my ute." So a bit of background. I run a commercial bakery. We make allergen-free bread products, which we can freeze and sell to the customer. Last year, I needed a new car and decided to purchase a ute/pickup truck as a company car. The thing pretty much pays for itself as I've been using it to make deliveries to the local area. What I'm saving every week on freight more than pays for the car and insurance. Anyways, yesterday I needed to make several such deliveries, so I loaded up Cletus, that's what I call the ute, and hit the road. Was on my way to my last delivery of the day when I decided to stop off at a discount grocery store along the way. Popped in for exactly 10 minutes just to grab a few things. When I come out to the parking lot, I see our entitled mother of the day grabbing a box out the back of my ute. I ran to it and asked her, "What the frick are you doing?" "Nothing, this is my car. Don't you think a woman can drive a ute?" I pull out my keys and unlock the cab. Immediately she realizes she's busted and changes tactics. "My family needs bread and all the stores are sold out. You're hoarding it." "Lady, look at the logo on the box. Look at the logo on my door. Notice how they're the same?" "Oh, so you make it, which means you won't miss a box." "I also deliver it, and the customer who ordered this most certainly will miss a box. Now put it back before I call the police. If you want bread, go to the business 10 minutes up the road. I literally just dropped off a pallet there a few minutes ago." "No, it's too far and I have things to do. Just give me yours. I'll give you $4 for a loaf." "Lady, I'm selling this for $25 for a box of 4. I'm not giving you one for $4. "That's robbery. No bread is worth that much. You're just raising the prices because people are desperate. Shame on you." "That's the standard price, and my gluten-free vegan bread is most certainly worth that much." At the mere mention of the word vegan, the lady shook her head in disgust, dropped the box back in the ute, and wound up accusing me of being a gay before leaving. People are ducking crazy. And all I can think of is the gluten-free nut bread that my mum's work sells, and I think it's vegan, though I'm not positive. Nut flours, whole nuts, raisins, etc. It's $20 a loaf. That actually sounds pretty good, to be honest. But I don't use nuts. We're allergen free, so no nuts allowed in the factory. Not even staff lunch. Ours are pretty basic, but they taste like real bread, so people like them. You demonstrated enormous restraint. If I caught someone stealing from my truck, and they had the nerve to get snotty with me, I'd arrest them. Lol. Less about restraint and more about wanting to avoid having police poking around my car. Let's just say, I bought a few grams of a herb that they won't like the smell of. Also, I just wanted to get on with my day. And our next post by Swanna1. The schools in my area are closed for the virus. This is what one parent had to say. Alright, let's get my Karen voice ready. Not only are they doing that, but they're also ruining birthday parties for kids who have birthdays this week. My daughter's birthday party is on a Saturday, and not a single parent is RSVP'd because of this stupid virus, and now the schools are closing, so I can't even find out if kids are coming to the party. This is absolutely ridiculous over a frickin' flu. How dare the coronavirus ruin her child's birthday party? What do you guys rate that one down in the comments? Am I a good actor? Please give me at least, I reckon that was a good 6 out of 10. I swear I'll do better next time, just give me another chance. Dark Angels Acute says, my kid had a birthday this week. He just turned 5. The thing we planned got cancelled, and he didn't get to go to school either to celebrate with his friends. We talked about this briefly, got something else for his birthday and moved on. The world keeps spinning. Go figure. It's like a whole generation of people were raised on raging against the machine or something. Whoops. I don't understand, because I'm young. What does it mean? Shrexy Mima 69420 says, my friend is abused by his dad, and now it is getting worse. I have posted about my friend being abused by his dad, and now it's gotten worse. He has been depressed all week and thinks that he has anxiety. His dad won't let him do the things he likes, and puts him under constant stress. He tried talking to his mum, who was dragged into this by his dad, and dad about this, and then they just yell at him and call him things. His life is being ruined, and he is thinking suicidally. We have gotten him through suicide before, and we are trying again. I need all the support from you guys as I can. Thank you to whoever helps out in this dark time. Edit, I have also prevented a suicide, and he just said he had another panic attack. I am stressed out and worried, and I have to do other things too. He is afraid that if I call the CPS, his parents will get pissed off at him and hit him and yell at him, causing him to start panicking again. Get him away from his dad however you can for as long as possible. Maybe CPS? He can't get away, he's refusing to contact CPS, but we're trying to get to him. Call CPS for him. I'm young and don't know his address. I can't call them for him. I wish I could. Yes, you actually can. If you know any info like streets, his dad's name, they can search. Don't know that. One of my other friends' dad is in CPS and knows about this. With enough information, public property sites, Google, anything can be found. If you know where he goes to school, they can contact him there. Email, cell phone. Well, same school as OP, that's some advice. That's some good advice. If you guys are going through things like that, I know I've just turned 180 from like laughy to this, but this is a serious matter. I've already lost 3 people in my life to suicide. It's not a joke. Do contact CPS if you have someone in this situation, or Adult Protective Services, anything to help these people out. Yeah. Next story, I guess. Now by Flippy is King 18. No sir, I can't program this store computer to play games for entitled kid. The store I work in happens to have this neat little kiosk with a touchscreen for placing orders from bakery, deli, or floral departments. Unlike any of these departments in the store, it's open until the store closes. So even if there isn't anyone working there that can help customers, they can still order and browse through what we offer. There's also a phone nearby the screen to call someone over to help with them, and I dread picking it up, because I'm required to stand there and help the customer through every step of placing orders. Normally, it's someone who's ordering for a great big party and wanting one of everything from everywhere. But this story isn't about someone wanting to order something and not knowing how to use a computer. It's far more stupid than that. I was working the department. The bakery store manager was gone for the day, and I hear the phone ring. I'm like, hello, this is blank. I need some assistance over at this computer, please. Be right there. I walk over, and there is entitled Dad, fitted with a football jersey of all things, and his entitled kid, a boy about 7 to 8 years old, tapping the computer screen with his greasy little fingers. I'm like, "Hi, can I help you?" "Yes, hello. I was wondering if you can change the computer screen." What do you mean?" "Well, I need to make a very important business call, and since you have this computer here, I figured you can let entitled kid play his games on it while I'm busy." "No, I can't do that." "Why not? Is this not a computer?" "Well, it is, but it's not like a regular computer. It's only programmed to be on this website so customers can..." "Well, can't you unprogram it? I have people waiting on the phone, and I can't let my son get bored, or else he'll start to make noise and run around." "I want to play Roblox, Dad. I want to play Roblox, Daddy." "Sir, there's no way to do anything else on this computer, and there isn't anything I can do about it." "But don't you work here?" "Yes, as an employee of the store, not as a computer technician." "Well, then call somebody else. You're wasting my time." "Okay, I'll call my manager, and he'll tell you the exact same thing." "Sure he will. Just call him so I can get back to my real job." So, ignoring that comment, I've heard it all before, I used the exact same phone near the computer to call my manager and tell him the whole story. Okay, see? He's also saying that there's no way to program the computer to do anything besides taking orders from the store. Bullcrap. Let me talk to him. So I give him the phone, and he yanks it out of my hand, nearly letting it fall to the ground. Entitled Kid is still tapping on the screen like a maniac. Entitled Dad's like, "What do you mean you can't do anything? What kind of business are you running here anyway?" "Dad, I'm hungry. Daddy, 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 daddy." Okay, I thought. I'm done here. My manager will handle it. So I asked for the phone back, and the entitled Dad somehow hands it back without a fight, and just asked my manager to come down and talk to the guy, because I got work to do. Manager agrees. I go back to my department. A minute later, here comes my manager. Entitled Dad is fuming at the screen, trying to work it with the keyboard like an 80-year-old trying to figure out how to send an email. I couldn't hear anything, but I saw the whole thing. Manager was talking to the guy. Entitled Dad was yelling profanity after profanity, and Entitled Kid was busy licking icing off the donuts. Gross. I knew eventually security would have to be called to escort this guy and his little bundle of misery out the door. The guy actually started looking worried, downright crap his pants scared, when the security guard came over, but he also didn't put up a fight. He's a big guy, for you, so if he ran, he wasn't gonna get far. Security literally pushed him and his kid away to the door, while manager got to work removing the donuts now contaminated with Entitled Kid's germy tongue. I'm not sure what happened after that, whether or not Entitled Dad had to pay for the donuts. I'm sure he did though. I have a feeling there was no phone call either. The guy just wanted his son to stay in one place for more than a second so he can breathe, maybe take a nap. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode today. Sorry that my reading was a bit off there at the last story. My brain goes to kerfuffle when there's too much nonsense that enters it. So I hope you guys did like it. Send me some well wishes in the chat. We're all in quarantine. You know how it really do be these days. I hope you're having a good night, day, sleep, whatever you're up to. I'm gonna have a sleep myself soon. So I'll see you in the next episode, and I hope you're doing well. Bye.